Ivory was traded for guns and ammunition, and the soldiers ate their meat. Really tragic. And now, there was only about a few hundred traumatized elephants left in the park, and many of them were tuskless. In African elephants, you get about 3% tusklessness, and naturally in females. And now in Gorongosa, it's more like 30 to 40, because soldiers hadn't wasted their bullets on elephants that didn't have ivory. So there's a disproportional number of tuskless elephants, and they don't like us very well. So now we had a new problem where people spoke of being charged and chased by elephants and having terrifying encounters with these things. And I had spent a lot of my career filming elephants, and I thought that by driving away quickly under these situations, you were just provoking the elephants to charge. I thought that if people just sat quietly, the elephants would not chase or charge, and they would get bored with the game and just go back to being, ignoring us, the way elephants do in most of the national parks all over Africa. Well, I spoke with my sister Joyce about it, and Joyce had now spent some 35 years studying wild elephants in Africa, and she had focused on their communication, but was widely considered to be the world's greatest expert on wild African elephant behavior. She came to Gorongosa to see what was up with these crazy elephants, and we both agreed that we wouldn't drive away from stressful encounters. And so I built a metal frame for my Land Rover that I hoped would protect us if I was wrong about the charging elephants. And we went to work. When the elephants charged, we simply just turned off the car and sat quietly. And the elephants would come screaming up to the car, and then they would stop just before hitting us. Time after time after time, and they never hit us. Eventually we saw the same elephants over and over again, and they stopped charging us. And so we were really stoked. We felt like we had made a lot of progress. Joyce was able to see some really interesting aspects of these Gorongosa elephants, and we thought we were on our way to regaining peace with these poor animals that had been so devastated during the war. Well, not long after this, I was out in the park with the philanthropist Greg Carr and a ranger named Marvin Echo, and we had an amazing afternoon. We were sitting with these elephants, and they were completely peaceful around us. The babies were playing in front of me. The mothers were scoffing up these little brown seed pods. They're called Acacia albida seed pods, and they were ignoring us, which is how we want these elephants to be. Well, the afternoon went on. I got some great footage, and the elephants moved off, and it was late, and we decided we had a long way to go back to park headquarters. So we just, on our way, elephants had knocked a tree down across the road, and it was just starting to get dark, so I flicked my lights on, and I started to beat my way through the bush around this tree, into the forest around this tree, and suddenly I heard elephants trumpeting on my left, and I looked up to see 3 adult females coming charging straight at the car. So I turned off the engine, and we sat quietly, as one of the elephants came raging right up to the edge of the car, and she stopped just before hitting us, and she smelled us with her trunk, and she gazed down at us through the open bars of my Land Rover. And I wasn't too worried though, because I was used to this, and I knew it was only a matter of time before she sort of backed up and went back to the forest and joined the rest of the elephants. But she didn't, she just stood there. So time went on, and I was starting to get nervous, and I was thinking like, oh geez, I wish we could go now, but she just stood there. And then, suddenly, she lowered her head, and with the full force of her body, she slammed into the front of the car. And she hit so hard that she blew the tire off the rim on the other side. And the protective metal bar and the body of the car just collapsed. Simultaneously, I heard this huge bang go off over my head. And I didn't realize until later it was the sound of Marvin Echo's .458, which is a huge caliber rifle. It makes a ton of noise. Well, the elephant backed away. And I thought, whoa, it'd be a good idea to give her some space. So I turned the car on and I started to back up, whereupon she put her head down and just came at us again, just charging straight between the headlights, smashed into the car again, this time driving us back. And her head was pressed up against the metal bars in front of me, and her ears wide open across the front, just inches from my hands on the steering wheel. I tried to steer the car as we were going backwards, but it was pointless. I just didn't want her to flip us sideways and then roll us, and then she'd really pummel us. But luckily, we smashed into a tree, and then she couldn't push anymore, and Marvin Echo shot another shot point blank over her head, and she turned around and went into the forest. So I turned the car on again, and I drove forward onto the track so we could start to change the tire, Whereupon, out of the darkness comes this charging elephant. Marvin Echo fired his last warning shot. They're given 3. And she turned and left. We limped back to park headquarters. My Land Rover was a wreck, but the bars it held, and luckily nobody was hurt. But my confidence with the elephants was totally shattered. I was no longer willing to hold my ground against charging elephants, and I became completely aware of everything that was going on around me out in the park, especially at night.